Probably just gonna hang out until maybe some folks get here, run some games. We'll see. Meantime, we'll look at some games because they're fun. You know, Chavez is really good at Grave, and in fighting games in general, but these games were really fun. I think I've posted before an opinion that I think that Grave is probably 5-5. I don't think that's necessarily true. After our games yesterday, there's still stuff to figure out and things to run, but I think that's it's gonna be weird. We're getting to the point where I really think that playing offline is gonna have a really quantifiable impact on the way that the matchup plays out. Our connection's really good, so it feels close, but what it really comes down to is that Graves neutral A is a really good poke against Rook, and not necessarily in ways that other moves match, which is really interesting. I think makes the matchup very cool to play out, but nobody's gonna play it like this. I think it's very interesting. I wonder why Chavez decided to end up playing it this way, like what prompted it exactly, but one of those. Oh, hold on, sorry about that. Stream has been disrupted. There we go. Maybe I'll pause it real quick and double check that our... Oh no, we're good. Perfect. Mouse skills, immaculate. Alright. But I think what's really interesting is that, so the way that Rook and Grave conventionally play this matchup is that Rook walks Grave down. Grave uses predictive pokes and fireballs to keep Rook out, and Rook has to jump at times that try to punish that. And I think conventionally that's fine, and it ends up being kind of even, I think, because, or my line of thinking was that it ends up being even when Rook is able to jump at Grave and create mix-ups through the jump. So this is the normal use Earthquake or forward jump A kind of thing. But Graves neutral is actually a really strong, really strong anti-air, even though it's really clunky feeling to use. Let me hop into the next one. It has a bunch of startup. It's not super duper active, but it's very disjointed. And I say a ton of startup. It's not actually that much startup, but for an anti-air with the range it has, it's limited. And I think a really good example is the one that whiffed here. Part of why Rook's able to fight this predictive jumping game is because even if Grave didn't do anything like here, this is maybe the best example. We'll find another one later. The way that the move works, like normally Rook would fall into this, but Splash adjusts the hurt box and shifts Rook's momentum, so he gets to force blocks every now and again. Top secret Chavez. I was just looking for something to do, so I thought I'd kick on a little talk about our games yesterday, because I thought they were really fun. Also great to see you here. But I think they were informative for me, because I think we played last time, and my impression was that it's probably pretty even of a matchup, but our games yesterday really made me adjust my thinking on the role that Graves neutral A plays in the matchup. It's really a lot stronger than I thought, and its strength isn't exactly in what it does in anti-air, though it's good. As an anti-air, it kind of shuts down Earthquake because it covers enough height and enough horizontal distance that if Rook uses Earthquake to stall outside of its range, Grave generally recovers in time to punish in some way. This isn't always true, and I think I could adjust my Earthquake usage to be better. If Rook is closer, then I think he gets access, like unlocks more actual punishes. But at like the middle range where you normally want to jump in, I don't think it's as good as I was using it. I was using it like it was better than it was, maybe. But anyway, the real strength of neutral A, I think, is what we were finding as we played more, is that it's quick to start up, and it covers enough horizontal and vertical space that it catches the startup of Rook's jump 2, and it works as a really scary feeling poke in Rook's face. And the way you were using it yesterday, I think, is something that I don't think anybody else is ever going to do. Let me hit play again. I'd definitely be surprised. But I think if we take this matchup offline and cut out those extra couple frames of input delay, and we're playing the most refined game that we can, who knows exactly where it ends up, but I think it's got to be at least slightly Grave advantage. Like, if Rook's really good at calling out what Grave does, Rook gets upside, but neutral A doesn't pay off Rook for predictive jumps like Fireball or back A do. What neutral A's weakness is Rook doing really subtle adjustments to spacing to try and make it whiff, and then Rook punishes with a throw or something like that. But if you've got nerves of steel and really excellent spacing, you just sort of wiggle around and create Yomi counter opportunities and that sort of thing too. It's really, really neat. But I don't know, like I said, I think I'd be curious to see if I can't play this kind of game with Mayo Paula, for instance. I really like playing games with Mayo, and I think they're really good. That was an unfortunate one. But just because of the connection we're going to have, we're an ocean away from each other. I don't think we're never going to play this matchup like this, so it's just a totally different game. Yeah, NAC, that's the other good thing, good point. So the other really strong thing about neutral A is that neutral A lets Chavez confirm if it hits armor thanks to hit stop. So before the grab connects, can mash out or cancel into a C, which was really clever and really effective. There were quite a few supers in the set that I delayed some to try and bait them out, but then I buffered some option right when the super flash started. It's just that slightest bit of delay is very effective on your side. I thought it was nice. Hey, Y20. And hey, Damien. So I think this sort of like ground spacing game with neutral A is really effective right now. So I don't have a great feeling of exactly what Rook does. I think neutral A, like Rook trying to counter poke in some way. There's an earthquake that worked, but it was I wonder if we can go back and see. The thing I always question here is with ones like this, it's got to be right on the borderline of Grave recovering and returning. Like here, you had actually returned to neutral, I think. It looks like you're pulling back. So Earthquake doesn't actually work as well as it does against a lot of characters, because in order to not get counter hit out of the startup, if I'm like a frame later here, I get poked, just because it's really good reach. Then there's not very often a window where Rook actually uses Earthquake to win. It might be better if, and to help illustrate the point, maybe I can pull the mouse in here. If Rook does a jump, not from this distance, here you back up a little, and then you neutral A. If Rook's like a little closer and does this jump and ends up over Grave, then the Earthquake will directly hit frames earlier. It'll bonk him out of the recovery, which is okay. The bigger problem with that, I guess, is that actually getting that close, whenever you try to jump over Grave in that way, neutral A actually covers it, and that's what I come back to round two. Neutral A, and we'll, I'm sure, see examples at some point. Neutral A is just really good. In that way, it covers the jump forward. And the way that you space it, I think, probably performs favorably against Rook's attempts to poke as well. I don't know for sure. This might be the kind of thing where it turns out that doing a close range forward A has value. The way it shifts Rook forward as part of the startup, it isn't reactable and it could catch you out of slight forward or neutral. But the like payoff is not the most great, and if you space out just a little bit and Rook makes a mistake and you react, then you really blast him with that super. By the way, if anybody wants to play, we can run games and stuff. I just thought I'd kick on some replay watching because I didn't have anything to do. I might play some Final Fantasy later too. And by might, I mean I almost definitely will. The brave walk-up throw. Rook's ground super also, I think, helps a lot. But it's all like a really tight game of reacting to spacing, but also guessing. It's a really... I don't know if any of you have played this game. Nice Yomi, right? Like, that's what I'm talking about, is it's really, really effective to walk up. And you probably hold neutral and you poke with neutral A little later. Rook's ground C is slow enough that it's pretty sketchy to use at point blank like that if Graves holding on to some cancel idea like neutral AC. Yeah, long sets with ATS, always great. Oh, missed the confirm. That's how it goes sometimes. I feel like I was saying something that had some non-zero value. Oh, I'm not actually a big believer in back A, and like that counter there was me getting counter hit out of ground C. I'm not the biggest believer in those moves in offline, probably. If we've got like a really good setup, I don't know how practical it is, but I'm thinking that they might be on that borderline of dangerous reactability to some opponents. It's like. Yeah, it's frame data doesn't make it look like it should be reactive. Grave back A. Rook's back A loses value to offline, and I figure you're reacting to at least a good amount of it. Its startup isn't the most readable. I think his hands get a little bigger, but the fact he changes from his neutral stance, I think, is significant. Oh. So Rook's back A's got to lose value for sure. But, where was it? Let me back up to the... Yeah. The thing I wonder about is that, yeah, it's probably worth me doing less of, but it's... The upside of somebody blocking it still isn't bad in all situations, right? I don't know, like in these situations, if I get supered every time I go for a back A in the mix for 2, then I think I stop, or I should stop right here. I guess there you had to commit to something first, so back A catches the jump out safely, but if you decided to block is the danger, huh? I trust you guys saying it's reactable online. It's definitely well within the boundaries. Might be best to leverage it on characters that don't have the one button invincible option that gets through it. Oh yeah, if it whiffs, it's really bad. The thing I was talking about was a lot dumber, I think. I'm sure it's in here somewhere. It's back when I get knockdown counter hit. This is frame 1 of ground C getting grabbed, which is unfortunate. Ow. But I feel similarly about Oni back A where there might be the chance that if those are even like semi-reactable, Oni back A is really bad because if there's a spacing where I think Oni's probably safe against ground C, so it won't like ruin the matchup forever, but it's gonna cut down on that habitable zone where Oni can be patient and keep walking back. Because when he gets a little too close, that back A to C cancel won't protect the spacing as well. Anyway, the back A I'm not actually worried about. Even if it's never reactable, the downside of Grave back A and forward A, I think, to different extents. Good patience on these, by the way. Thought they were nice. The big downside of the sweep and the forward A is that they don't hit particularly high early on, so they're weak. They're soft to that early jump in a way where like Rook gets 3 or he gets 2 in the knockdown or whatever. So the neutral A, you recover in time to block even if you guess wrong in a lot of cases, and I'm sure we'll see it at some point, like neutral A catching Rook out of the early part of his jump. It's just strong. The scary part is that in order to use it really effectively, you have to dance at the edge of what Rook's throw range is in GC and all that. Oh, yeah. Oh, no. What happened? I don't know what... Alright, well, I'll have to go back and find out what I skipped. Here, I'll back out. I want to see that, though. I was trying to pause it. Some sort of walk-up super idea. I don't remember what round we were on. Maybe round 3. That's pretty laid back, though. We'll just keep watching through it. Oh, right. Yeah. Mentioned that Chavez was thinking about super needing a little space to be able to get the hit. Yep, here's Grave winning with parry super. It's a really good result for Grave whenever he lands that parry super for sure. Hard oh yeah, I died a big cloud here after wind. I like chip resetting to keep me alive there. That makes me smile. I was thinking about it during the game. Yeah, I'm sure this is it coming up in a second. Throw. Take throw. So it goes. Oh, yeah, I was holding back. No. Oh, there it was. Yeah, the walk forward into super. I was wondering about that when we were playing the game. I was pretty sure I was dead. But I took my gift. Whenever you have wind and I'm at 1 HP, it's definitely scary. I'm not sure what the right answer is. I feel like when I jump at you like that, I'm probably throwing away my life, especially if you've got super on deck. It probably shouldn't work. But I wonder if it's more correct to just keep grounded and see if I can get to a range on the ground that lets me threaten something meaningful. Yeah, those neutral A's just really effectively poking Rook out. And there's a really good example. So if you're a Grave that pokes with back A or forward A or something like that, and we get into the situation, and we like guess at about the same time, Rook's got the read that Grave's gonna try and keep him out. Then your forward A becomes active like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, something like that. It's becoming active around here. Back A's got a few more frames. Neither of them are going to hit. You're going to be stuck whiffing while Rook comes over you, and even if you get to block or whatever, Rook's going to be creating a pretty advantaged mix-up situation. So being brave and using the... Yeah, you have 8 frame startup on neutral A, and forward A is is 10 or is it 11? I think it's 10 frames startup, active on 11 for forward A. So there's a couple frames difference in the startup. Neutral A is faster, but neutral A also hits way higher. So when you're talking about catching people out of their jumps, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it's probably active this whole time in about this sort of box, something like that. It's more of a question of it being active while Rook runs into it with the jump. While forward A would be active somewhere down here at about the time I get bonked. And back A, you know, it's low and it has upside, but maybe. Could be 12. We'll hit the lab a little later and check on it. Back A, I'm 100% with you. I'm pretty sure it's 14 too. Oh. That wasn't my intent. Yeah. It matters for some stuff, but just knowing the setups it creates or supports is the most important thing than just raw numbers. There's the idea. I wonder if I can poke with neutral A. The answer is maybe. You broke first mentally, but I wasn't. I gave in. Yeah, so I was thinking about that too. And that was my intent, is to do a little more of like the earliest possible forward jump A to punish you when you've got super. But in that case, I thought you were going to do a delayed jump in again. And I thought I would just get it. Yeah, this is pretty cheesy. Unfortunate. Rook recovers pretty fast off of Earthquake. I think I get punished for like doing it as a habit later. I was curious what option you're going for here, maybe. I thought I would go for the neutral A, forward A chip out. Partially because I want to make sure that I'm clean on this sort of setup. Yeah. Let's see, I wonder how it worked out if we do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Beautiful. Perfect. Excellent timing. Is in that range at least where it'd be a chip out if it was blocked. But it loses to super and all that, so it was a gamble, but I had that feeling that if super was down at the start of next round, it wouldn't be the end of the world either. I think I don't necessarily die to super right there as well. Hey, Catboy. Hope it's going well for you. Anybody want to play some games? I'll keep playing replays until we get something going. I think these games were around the spot where I was thinking a lot more about trying to whiff punish neutral A, and I kept up for it. Oh yeah, it's all good, Chavez. It's great to hear some things you were thinking about too. Very interesting. Getting hit for 2 there's real bad for Rook. Don't let that happen. But these games I was thinking a lot more about if I can bait out a neutral A, where do I want to be standing and making sure I'm mentally ready to grab the recovery and all that. There, see, there's a good example of me not getting it, but this is the thing I was thinking about in these games was the spacing that Chavez wants to play is very tight. If he walks a couple frames too close, then he's very vulnerable. But as long as these whiffs are possible, then I want to be making my movement provoke them. Or make, you know, you want to play that tempting game, and then I need to be ready to hit throw as soon as I see it. Not gonna bonk me in the face. So both of those were not so good. Yeah, there's the patience. It's the kind of thing where I think defense on Grave, between all the different stuff he's got, knockdown is not worth a KO most of the time, especially if you're not wanting to expose yourself to major risk as Rook. But I think a knockdown being worth like +1 damage on average, so you need 2 to win. There's that really good neutral AC cancel. But I think doing the careful spacing game and all that, it works out. Those jump Bs are really annoying too. There's sometimes I'll block them and you're safe, and it's like, wish that wasn't the case. Yeah, it's thinking about jump B, Graves jump B. It used to be the kind of move that knocked down on normal hit. It's a very brutal kind of setup. Yeah, I need to get those whiff punishes. If that becomes consistent enough, Rook doesn't have to take big crazy risks and jump ins. Like every jump in Earthquake that's ill-advised means Rook's taking 3. That cross-up's dirty. Yeah, I was pretty happy with that super too. This one was a little less so. It's one of those things that if Rook super had a little more range, it'd be more busted than it already is, but whew, I would enjoy that. There were some games the other day. We'll break up the Grave replay watching just a little bit. We'll do one more. I think the next one I get more whiff punishes with throws, which is nice. But then we can hop over to there's some game I played the other day on Menno's stream against Axe with yeah, so those ground Cs I think are the scary thing, but if Chavez is committing to like a walk-up Yomi as that sort of bait, there's an attempt to get the throw, they got counter hit. Good. Oh, a side thing that might be handy if you're ever playing this matchup normally, like not in this really interesting, dangerous Pokeway, but you're playing a more jump-centric version of this matchup. If you're Rook and you make a predictive jump and Grave didn't commit to any of this lower ground stuff that gets Grave punished, then you know Super's probably coming. Especially if they're like playing the conventional version of the matchup, which is Grave's mostly playing for Super, and every time Grave has Super, when Rook makes a wrong guess, he gets bonked. You see this happen? I haven't done anything yet. It is imperative for Rook to press a button because you only have a couple frames before the move comes out. But sometimes just letting yourself fall like this actually puts you inside the cinematic frames, and you get hit for 2, and that's really bad, right? It's a different kind of situation. But if you press basically any of Rook's air buttons, it messes with his height, even in those first couple frames. So you will basically never get cinematic hit, and it doesn't matter if you're counter hit or not. I haven't done any looking into the like knockdown advantage between cinematic hit and normal hit, but I don't think it, like the Oki, is substantially different or anything. So whenever you empty jump into a super, make sure to do something. If you just sit there regretting your life decisions that took you to this point, then you'll probably get hit for 2. And that's not so good. That's why Rook needs a health nerf. I don't know, maybe. Give him 6 health, but give him Satsuki's movement, and we'll call it good. Or we'll give him 5 health. I'd take a 5 health Rook that had that kind of speed. If I could turn every matchup from a jumping guess matchup into a walk down at mega speed. He as heavily Potemkin Buster. I wouldn't mind that. Nah, Damien. Old Landslide wasn't fun. Good Yomis. There are some times where it's that guessing game. After Graves blocked NA, he's minus enough that if he tries to jump or do stuff, he's vulnerable to throw. But you know, Chavez is playing around it like a champ. -1. So it's a guessing game, but it's not heavily advantaged. Getting Yomi countered isn't the end of the world, though. Especially if Graves already got super. Rook can take those gambles. It's not. It's more sad to lose the corner, so definitely be conscious of your positioning when you're thinking about what you're risking with a throw. Yeah. Nice throw. I wonder, things like that Earthquake are, if you ever watch oh, let me pause and back up a bit. Like this one here, these are the ones that when Grave doesn't do a neutral A, because Chavez committed to it like out here, and it's slightly misspaced maybe, like, I'm not sure. I probably fall into it normally. But if you're ever playing this matchup and you do an Earthquake at like this sort of spacing, and you just get murdered for it, you get hit for 3, it looks really dumb to me whenever I do some Earthquake at this range, and I'm like, when was that ever gonna work? The answer's like, maybe a situation like this. Maybe. But maybe not. I'm still not certain or sold. That's a thing that I looked at later in this set we played. I experimented around with some of the longer range jumps. This was me trying to exploit the fact that Chavez was going for like a little Yomi after the thing. A big head. What if a big head cheat code's in this game? I'd use it. I'd use it every game. Makes me think of when I was younger, there were the Ratchet and Clank games. And I play them with my cousins. We didn't have a PlayStation at our house, so we didn't play them ourselves. But whenever we visited them, it was our chance to goof around in those games. And they played them a bunch and found the different secrets and unlocked the different cheat codes and things. That was a really big thing around that time, I guess, is like big head mode and all sorts of goofy things. Good sword. Oh, it does. Yeah, the best part about Rook doing jump C is definitely that shot of giant head. I wanna, maybe there's some way we can get like a rollback bug. I'm gonna highlight a thing real quick here, but like you get a bug with rollback where it got stuck like that. That'd be amazing. So as a Rook player, whenever you're playing some matchup, and this applies like in every game across the, maybe I back up another 10 seconds. Every game you play, your opponent's at 6 life. You get a knockdown here. We go for a guessing game. There I didn't go for anything. I'm not sure exactly why. Most likely just trying to bait a super, which is a fine thing to do. So when you force a block, you've got your mix-up situation. In this case, I take throw, and it works out. Down to 3. When your opponent's on 3, and you're setting up your safe jump, you want to make sure that your evaluations all shift from 3 and lower. When your opponent's on 3, a jump in is worth 3, and no knockdown with forward A. So, or normally if your opponent's on 4, you don't. Your jump in is always good because it's super duper safe and it leads to more mix-ups. But when it's 3 life, not only is it super safe and it leads to more mix-ups, but it also ends the round if they don't block it. So even if you already lean into it a bunch, trying to make your opponent want to do something that's not block on 3 is really valuable, because sometimes you'll get these, and you don't know what happened in these situations. Like maybe, I don't know, Chavez was mashing out super or was trying to do something crazy. Who knows? But When you can create situations where your opponent on 3 decides to do something that isn't block, then you really get away with it. Yeah. I think Catboy mentions is that recognizing opponents' win conditions in their own is something that's like tricky. It really is. I think that Rook's one of the characters that I find is really nice to play in this game, and as like a general sort of teaching tool, Rook's guessing games are not just his guessing games. What he's trying to do to win is really straightforward, and a lot of grapplers maybe fall into this in some capacity. But when your game plan is really straightforward and simple, I think it really takes a load off your mind to think about what your opponent's prioritizing and what they're focusing on, and it lets you engage with that part of the game a lot more easily than I think a lot of characters get to, just because you play, I don't know, you play Jaina. I've played some Jaina recently. Oh, look at this. As with many things, Rook has some very suspect cross-ups. The corner. But when you play Jaina, for example, the like condition that you're trying to create that makes you win is not a very clear thing. It's very sketchy. Like, yeah, do I want to create a situation where I loop dive kicks on a character that's really soft against them? Do I want to get a throw so that I get a strike throw that puts them down on the ground, or like, what am I trying to walk at a certain range where they'll do something reactable that I Dragon Heart? Identifying what's high value or high leverage in a matchup is hard, I think. And when even like the spacing you want to live at isn't clear, that makes it even trickier. I don't know. It's one of the fun things to try and figure out too, I guess, so definitely an interesting thing.